we think about animals, we think in many places to see them. For example, in the zoo, when we can see the lions or even whales sometimes. The sanctuary, where they are living in peace. A natural reserve, where they seem completely free. Or wildlife, where they are completely free. But are these places really what we think they are, and which is the best for the animals or even for the planet? Today in Ocean Science we will explore these different environments for the animals and how they work, what they are, and which are the best for them. We will start from the zoos. This is not a new idea. This began years ago and thousands of years ago. The first record that we have of a zoo is from the Egypt Empire. Here the pharaohs wants to have exotic animals to show and to see all days, and this is the concept that starts to put the animals in small spaces to watch them. Later on we see the same concept, an imperator or a king from China for Greece or even Rome. At that time were common to have animals to show your power and to be curious about it. There were a lot of kings that want to have them inside of the palace. As I remember, also in Vienna you have this part that was divided for each animal, and that animals come from different continents that the researcher studies, shows to the king, and then the king chooses one of them and they bring it to this palace. The idea of the new zoos, so for everyone, born in the 19th century, and this starts with the idea of showing the people animals that they wanna never see in their life. Nowadays we're talking about 10,000 zoos and aquariums worldwide, and this brings to 700 million visitors each year. But behind the popularity that this environment have, there are of course problems with the ethical and the behaviors of the animals, because as we see there, you have these animals that are not in their natural environment, and for that they doesn't seem like the animals that they are. The behavior that they have changed because they are in small spaces and sometimes in artificial recreation of their natural environment. And these changes on the behavior helps to understand the stress that these animals have. Nowadays, the zoos has another way to see this, and it's because they work in the recovery of some animals and leave it on the wildlife again, or also on the recovery of a species. You need to have a space where these species that are in danger can be together, grow, and then you can put it again into the wildlife. Then we have the sanctuaries. In these places you have more space than the zoos, but here the animals come from different situations, like petting or some natural disaster or even a human disaster, and these animals are rescued and put it in the sanctuary so they can live alive, working with it and being near to what was their natural environment. The thing here is that you're not solving the real problem of crisis that these animals have in their natural environments, and most of the times these are private and small spaces where not all the animals fit. And also you have the natural sanctuaries for the marine animals, but it's also the same, like you need to control everything. There are animals that are in recovery, so it's not easy to work with it and you're not going to the root of the problem. If we move forward, we will have the nature protected areas. Here, this division includes all the areas that can control the entry of the humans and the human activity. There are 4 different meanings, but real state is to maintain a species or an environment. We can have different levels of protection, so different ways to limit the human activity, and the maximum is the one who doesn't entry anyone, and then you can have these different layers, so only scientific persons or only tourists or only small activities that can work there. According with the International Union of Natural Conservation, we have today the 60% of the land and the 8% of the ocean protected by these natural reserves. Of course, in these numbers, we need to consider the thing that I said before. You have different levels of protection. Doesn't mean that this 8% of the ocean is untouchable. So you have these different layers, and not all the 8% is natural protection that the ocean has is 100% out of the human activity. We can have example as the Galapagos Island or the Great Barrier Reef. They are marine protected areas that are working today. And bigger than this, we have the biosphere reserves and the corridor. These are also areas that can be protected in different levels. So whole corridor, or only limited for tourists, or limited for some small human activities. These are created for put together dots in natural protected areas where the animals can migrate and move through. So, for example, if you have a whale that is protected in some place and they migrate each year to another place, you put a corridor to connect these two dots, and here the animal can be protected the whole time. The problem here is also the same, that not all the corridor is fully protected, and in that case also you are limiting a lot the human activity, because you can understand that if you put a corridor from all the migration of whole animals, you're gonna have a problem of moving through in ships or planes or in land. If you start to connect all these dots, we need to stop the human activities, so it's not easy as it seems. But it's a good position to help to these big animals, or small also, that has the migration system in their genes. We have around 700 of these biosphere reserves, and we can have examples as Mexico and Spain. And finally, we have the wildlife. So the place where the animals are free and they can move where they want and they live their normal life as before we were here on Earth. Or at least that is what someone can think, but it's not the reality. Because nowadays, the human beings are in whole world. So you don't have a place where an animal is completely and truly free. This is because if you are completely free, for example, in the Antarctica, you will have always pollution from the atmosphere, also microplastics, and also illegal activity from different ships. As we know, we have the international waters that are from anyone, so it can be considered the wildlife place for the ocean animals. But it's not that case, because the ships can go there and start to fishing if they have some rules, but they not always use these rules. They can fish there and take fish as they want, or they can interfere in different migration routes. So the reality is that this wildlife concept doesn't exist anymore. It's not true enough to be sure that an animal is in the real statement and is free and can do wherever they want and are protected by the nature. So after seeing all these different examples of how the animals are living in this actual planet with this regulation, we can have a tier list of what is the best for the animal and also for the environment. I think I want to start to put it in the lower place, the zoos. This is because, of course, the animals has not enough space to be there. They are not in the real behaviors, but they are not the worst thing in the world, because as I said when I was talking about the zoos, they are also researching on the animals, putting together some species again in the environment, so this helps a little bit on the environment, but I think is the last of the list. Then we can have the sanctuaries. They are good, but they are not going through the root of the problem. You're always gonna need it, because as a human species, we also use the animals, we crash with them, so you're always gonna need a place where the animals can recover, and that can be a sanctuary. It's a big place where the persons are taken care of. They are not big enough, they are not with enough money to have all the animals there, but I think is a good way to maintain this problem. After that, I'm gonna put the wildlife. So it's not because I don't like the animals being in a wildlife, it's because I think the wildlife doesn't exist anymore. You have several points in the world that this can be almost true, but I think it's not the thing that we need to reach. So it's not the goal to have all the animals in wildlife. This is because, as I said before, we have all this illegal activity, all these places that are not regulated. So the best thing is to have animals in the laws that outside of them. And for that, I put it in the next place, the corridors and the biosphere reserve. This is a nice idea, but it's completely difficult to regulate because you are talking about big spaces and big distances. So maybe you need to talk about different countries or even different communities to put together laws to maintain this protection. And depending on the grade that you put this protection, you're gonna limit the human activity also. And this is not always easy for a country. And the best one from my point of view is the natural reserve. This can also have different levels of protection, but that is the good thing, because depending on the animals that you have there and the situation that you have, you can take, for example, tourists there, so you can gain money for that and maintain the park a little bit better. And then if you need the protection, the real one, you can close everything with the laws of the country or the community, and this space start to growing along, as happens in the Hawaii island. And this is the best way to maintain the environment and the animals, of course, from my point of view again, because it helps to everyone to be conscious of what is going on in our country or in our planet and how we can help it. Maybe we can see it from tourists and understand how the animals works there, or maybe we cannot enter, but we know that only the scientists and these researchers can go there and help to these animals and to this environment to grow again and be as they was before. So it will be like one of the biggest challenges that are going through in these times, also with the international laws, is to put more reserve in the world, so more natural reserves also in the ocean, because as I said, we're talking about 8%, 6% depending on the scale, and not all this percentage is 100% covered. So maybe you can enter a little bit, or maybe you can have small activities there. So it's not that percent is completely covered by the human activity. After all this, I want to say that these are personal thinkings. I have researched about all this. I want to let all the papers and the different sheets that I read for making this video. So if you think different or you have more ideas or knowing about this, you can let it also in the comments. This is my personal tier list and my personal way of thinking of how the environment can be recovered or how can goes into the future. I hope that you liked this video, you learned something about it, and this is all for today. If you like this content, subscribe to the channel, share with more people, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.